Hello everybody, welcome back to a brand new episode of F1 23 Driver Career Mode here on the channel. Hope you're all having a great day. Today we are headed down under in Melbourne, Australia for the Australian Grand Prix, race number 3 on the season, fresh off of our first podium in our career last episode in Saudi Arabia. Of course, coming off of a 4th place effort in Bahrain and then that 3rd in the last one. So hopefully maybe we can keep that pattern going of now P2. Verstappen, 6 points on the board. It's been a rough start to the season, of course, for him. You can see qualifying, it's going to be raining, and we'll see how that works out. Now, in the R&D, Red Bull have brought an upgrade for this weekend, so let's pay attention to that team and see what they can bring to the performance table, because of course they have had a really rough start to the season, not only for Verstappen but Perez as well. However, Perez has been the best of the two drivers. It's been a repeat so far of last season for that team. Perez started out season 1 quite a bit better than Verstappen for the most part, and then of course Verstappen kind of took over after Miami, so it didn't really take long. So we'll kind of see what the situation here is today in Australia. We get to the track Friday, of course, and get on circuit here for some free practice 1. This car really shines in these conditions. A beautiful sunny day conditions here with that bright sun shining down on that beautiful green Aston Martin. Oh, it looks so good now, especially on that front straightaway with that sun right here as well, just shining right down on the halo. Looks so beautiful. But we continue on in free practice 1. I was having a pretty good outing, pretty confident with the car. Definitely seemed, when we were comparing pace to our competitors from Bahrain and Jeddah, it looked like we were a bit more off than we were in the first 2 races of the season. We end up P7 in practice, while Fernando ends up in 2nd place there, as you see Gasly at the bottom. But look at this. Saturday afternoon, it was barreling down here in rain, so we're going to be on the wet tires. Now, it's going to be an interesting one. Basically, the rain is pretty heavy right now, but it's going to consistently over the next 20 minutes or so get lighter and lighter until it eventually stops. That means that basically Q1, it's going to be wet tires. Q2, it's going to be intermediates, and then Q3, hopefully late in Q3, we will be able to switch to the dry compound soft tire. So here I am making my attempt in Q1. Really all I needed to do in Q1 on this wet was just get to the line without crashing, and we should be okay. And this lap would end up actually quite a bit better than I expected it to here now, as you can see myself moving my way forward here now in these final moments, and we're going to cross the stripe. And we go top of the board, so really confident. As you guys know, we have really excelled in the rain in Season 1, and it looks like we're seeing the same thing here today, top of the board in Q1, as no one in particular as a surprise on the outing there in Q1 for the 5 drivers out. Here we are in Q2, so it started on wets, but it ended on inters, so I didn't go out until the inters were ready to go, and unfortunately, my first lap on inters was quite sloppy. For, of course, the first lap, it would put me top of the board because I was the first one to make a lap on the inters, so we would have to run a second lap though. So there you see, we go top of the board, but everybody out right now on track is also just put on inters, so they're going to be going quicker, and I would actually probably go down to the slowest car, and sure enough, I'm down to P12 late in the lap, and I would find the most time through the chicane right there, and then the 3rd to last corner right here is another corner where I was able to find a whole bunch of pace again, and actually really through the last sector was where I just gained everything. We found about 7/10 of a second. We were down to 15th, but crossing the line, this is going to be enough to put us into Q3 with the improvement there of 8/10 of a second. So up to P8. Most notably, both Red Bulls, Perez, Verstappen advance into Q3. Only one McLaren and Alpine apiece go through with Norris and Ocon. So here we are in Q3, and now it's becoming a standard of making it to Q3, which is a nice change. I only ran 1 lap there in the inters. We were P4. Late in the session, it was time to put on the soft, dry compound tire. So let's see what we can do as we kick off the lap down towards turn 1. Max Verstappen into turn 1's off circuit, and that's going to be his run completely ruined. We nearly made contact with him. So Verstappen, who's currently 2nd on the board, is going to be starting from 10th place on the grid here, as everyone everybody, of course, is going to go faster than those intermediate times, except for Verstappen. So through the chicane, I myself making some errors here. It was not a pretty lap. You see a big shot of oversteer. A great save. Alonso goes fastest for now, but it was quickly changing and getting quicker. Russell goes quicker. Sainz goes to the top of the board. Could he be on pole? We'll have to wait and see. As you can see, Hamilton's down to 7th. He goes quicker as he crosses the line. Leclerc crosses the line, not pole. Alonso down to P6. We're only P10, and as we head down the front straight away, it's Alonso 6. We are only going to end up in 9th place because of that sloppy lap. So, not the lap I wanted. It's a Ferrari front row lockout, so a bit of a mess. It was a weird qualifying, of course, so Mercedes and Aston Martin's goal of a 1 through 4th, not even close. There's only one of them in the top 4. Let's get ready to race.
This circuit missed a few years off the F1 calendar, and we missed Albert Park. So welcome back, and it's great to be back in Melbourne. Welcome to the Australian Grand Prix. So here we are at Albert Park Circuit, 3.28 miles around, with the streets making for a bumpy surface with little undulation. There are 14 corners around the lake, with the best passing opportunities coming at turn 1 and turn 3. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. It's Carlos Sainz in pole position, with Charles Leclerc alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Hamilton, Perez, Russell, Fernando Alonso, Norris, Gasly, Golden Boy, Verstappen, Ocon, Magnussen, Albon, Bottas, Oscar Piastri, Joe, Tsunoda, Stroll, De Vries, and Logan Sargent. With preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track. And what would any Grand Prix weekend be without the one and only Natalie Pinkham? Now I want to talk to you about Carlos Sainz.
What a quality performance. The big question, though, is how does that translate on race day? Can they hold on to that lead? And let's see who's able to keep their tyres in that temperature sweet spot early on. You've got a great tyre warmer underneath your right foot, and the drivers need to make the most of that on the formation lap, or they'll skate wide at turn 1 on cold rubber.
We have an interesting Grand Prix on the way today, having some work to do, of course, not only for myself, but for my teammate as well, Fernando. Now, as you can see, we're going to be doing a soft to medium tire strategy here, looking at what everybody else is doing. A lot of softs. Leclerc's on mediums, Norris, Gasly, Max Verstappen also on the mediums. I expect Verstappen to have pretty good pace here today. And then, let's get ready to go for the formation lap.
Gets underway, and every driver will be looking to settle in for the race ahead, making sure that their car is ready for the battle once the lights go out. As the cars come back towards the grid to line up for the start of the race, each driver will be wanting to get the best start they possibly can. And they'll be hoping to finish today's race on the podium, failing that, within the points.
All right, obviously not the best qualifying yesterday, but let's get after it and fight today.
Yes, sir. Not much we could have done there yesterday. Just was one of those deals, so let's make it happen today. Ready to roll then. So yeah, P9 on the grid. Honestly, could have been a lot worse, could have been a lot better. I mean, quite simple. It is what it is. Max Verstappen, the only one we beat in qualifying for Q3. He would have beat us if he didn't, of course, screw up his lap. But the last car comes up to the grid. It's a Ferrari front row lockout. Sainz and Leclerc joining him in second. It's 5 red lights. It's going to be lights out. We're underway for the Australian Grand Prix home race, of course, for Oscar Piastri. Now, as you can see, immediately Leclerc, not a great launch. Perez up the inside. Hamilton's already through, and so is Russell. It's actually a terrible start for Leclerc, down from second to 4th. Perez holds on over Norris for 5th and 6th. As you can see, Alonso there actually had a bad start as well. I'm ahead of Fernando, and Max Verstappen's right here as well ahead of Fernando, who's under attack from Esteban Ocon. So Alonso just did not launch off the grid at all, and he fell back pretty quick now, so we'll have to wait and see if he can move his way forward. Now, as you can see, both the Alpines together, we've got the Alfa Romeo Haas cars coming through this first and opening sector. It's been an up and down start to the season for them, of course, with that new team lineup of Kevin Magnussen, and we as well have the rookie of Nick DeVries, who of course is no longer in the real world F1 grid, but he's finally joined up. He joined our F1 grid after he got sacked in real life, but nonetheless, coming through the chicane, we actually got overtaken as well by Max Verstappen, and I'm not even going to bother showing it. He just simply did what Esteban Ocon just did, breezed past me, as I'm going to fight hard though with Ocon down into the braking zone, one of my favorite corners in Formula 1 right there, but we are able to hang on to 8th place. But yeah, we started P9, and the only one we passed was Fernando, and then we got passed by Verstappen, so P8, 1 position gain at the end of lap 1. Now coming to lap 3, DRS of course enabled at this point, and you can see Verstappen and Red Bull have way more pace than they've had in the opening 2 Grand Prix. Like I mentioned, they have brought an upgrade this weekend, and Verstappen breezing past just about the McLaren, his good friend of Lando Norris. It goes around the outside. I'm going to fill that gap right there, as I'm trying to stick with Verstappen. Very close quarters right there with the British driver of Norris, so we hang on and get the position up into P7 as Verstappen moves through into P6. Alonso's still stuck behind Ocon. He's not gone anywhere so far, but we get to that 7th position and hopefully can follow Verstappen down through the next 2 laps and get closer to Leclerc, and Verstappen's teammate is actually in the background. Norris went off, he locked up into turn 1, and he is able to recover, but he lost several positions out of that, so Alonso goes up through now into P9, and Norris jumps out of the points up front. Lap 4, Sainz now under attack for the lead. Look at the pace from the Mercedes driver of Lewis Hamilton. It is absolutely insane. Mercedes have stayed top of the board, but we haven't quite been able to have the pace that they have had this weekend. But Sainz is not making it easy. Of course, Hamilton wheel to wheel, both on the soft compound tire strategy. Same for Russell, who's just behind. Mega battle right here. As you can see, Hamilton is going to have the DRS again. So Sainz, he's clear, but it's not going to be for long. This time, Hamilton swings up the right side. Here comes Russell into the conversation. Hamilton gets clear a few moments later. Russell breezes past in the next DRS zone. Says thank you very much. So the battle though continues. Russell for the lead on Lewis Hamilton late in lap number 5 here at sector 3, and it's going to be a way easier pass than it was on Carlos Sainz. Russell to the point here now as we continue to follow Max Verstappen. So what a weekend. In the first 2 weekends so far, it's been Mercedes and us, Aston Martin. However, this weekend 2 more teams have joined the conversation, Ferrari and Red Bull. As speaking of Red Bull, Verstappen on Perez now, and he actually compromised his turn 1 pretty horrendously, and that opened the door for myself to swing up into the conversation and say thank you very much. We'll move up into P6 now and focus our sights on his teammate of Checo Perez, who was starting to struggle here as we continued on the laps. And actually, you see me asking about the driver in front because I was wondering if there's a problem with Perez here. Side by side, wheel to wheel into turn 1. He gives us the room we're deserving of. He goes a little bit wide there. I might have forced that error. Now as we continue side by side through DRS zone 2, and look at the speed in that Red Bull. They have definitely brought more pace, and they are here to fight now. So what I thought might be not even a contest this season versus Red Bull, starting to think otherwise here, because Perez now in the 3rd or 4th DRS zone fights back again, but we're able to hang on once again. So P5 is where we stay right now. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to drive away from these guys, so I decide lap 11. We're going to pit about a lap early. So my goal was to pit a lap early, and that would allow me to, of course, build a gap to Sergio Perez, because my goal is to quite simply pull far enough ahead to where he is not in my DRS. That's really the main objective here, so that way we don't have to worry about using our battery to stay ahead too much. So we're going to come in, put on this medium tire, head back out, 2.2 second pit stop, not bad at all, as we're going to cycle out. Fortunately, just enough behind traffic to where they're not going to impede my lap whatsoever there. Zhou Guanyu, Logan Sargent, the first 2 cars in front of us. So let's hope this works out. If this works out, we'll be 1+ second ahead of Sergio Perez, but now Lewis Hamilton in from 2nd position there. That's going to probably put him in the lead, and as well Sainz is in. So Russell might go from leading down to 3rd. Here's Perez right here, a lot closer than I wanted him to be as we exit turn 1. We get around him at ease. However, you can already see he's well within a second, and by the time we ended the lap, as we had run down Zhou and Sargent, Perez was right here with me with the DRS. Not what I wanted to see, as we would run down Pierre Gasly who is yet to pit, and I was working really hard to get past him because I was hoping that if I could put a car between myself and Perez for Sector 3, we might be able to get past that 1 second as I get a warning there for track limits, of course. But as we went down into the braking zone, Perez actually, unfortunately for me, is able to go around the outside of Gasly and somehow close in on me, actually, through that whole process. So it was getting rough here now as we actually beat Leclerc out, who stayed out quite long compared to us. Of course, he was on the medium, so of course he can go a lot longer. He's now on the hard compound tire. So right now it's Hamilton, Sainz, Russell, 1, 2, 3. We are up in 4th now through the cycle, but down to 5th because here comes Perez. I said, you know what, I'm not going to fight you anymore because I was draining my battery. It would have just been a matter of time. Russell sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix here now, as I'm just trying to stick with Perez at this point. I would be able to stay within DRS of Checo here now, so we're hanging on to 5th place, just kind of stalking him. Leclerc 2 seconds back at this point, not really closing in too much. Now Perez blows an engine down the front straightaway into turn 1, just over 10 laps to go, and it's going to be day over for Perez now, as that is heartbreaking. Red Bull showing pace for the first time this season, and their lead driver of the Grand Prix is out. Verstappen, of course, now the best runner, down in P7 behind Fernando Alonso. We hold on to 4th place, but Leclerc and Alonso were starting to close. But now with 10 laps to go, let's go through the grid.
Lewis Hamilton showing that he and Mercedes are back on true form this year, aren't they, Martin?
They sure are, Crofty, and I'll tell you, giving Lewis some confidence is the last thing his competition wants to do right now. Title number 8 could come this year.
Owen with a nice rebound drive up into 4th currently. However, Leclerc and Alonso are both closing in quite a bit right now. Ted, what have you got for us?
Yeah, guys, I'm not sure what has happened to Owen's pace, as it appears to have suddenly dropped off. I, however, just want to note some interesting Perez radio, which you should see now. They think that it was some type of puncture in a line somewhere in the car that caused his retirement.
All right, thanks, Ted. You see Gasly again having a rough day compared to his teammate of Ocon.
You have to wonder when Alpine will run out of patience waiting for him to perform. The newly rebranded Sauber cars right now running 13th and 16th respectively.
De Vries 17th in his 3rd F1 race, but that will wrap it up for Through the Grid.
Well, there you have Through the Grid here now, as you as well heard that our pace was falling off, and that was proven because by the end of lap 21, Leclerc and Alonso had run me down. I don't know what happened, but I had no pace, and you do see the engine icon is on, so we do have some wear on the ICE and the gearbox, but I don't think it really should have just significantly dropped the pace in the car. But we end up losing out to both Leclerc and Alonso. So down to P6 we go as Hamilton, Russell, Sainz, our current top 3. And I was struggling to hang with these guys until this would happen right here. They start scrapping it out. Alonso going around the outside, nearly contact there. Might have had a little bit of a touch there on wheels, but you can see Alonso goes through into 4th. A nice rebound drive for him, just like myself, as we would continue on lap 26 of 29. Only a few laps to go in this Australian Grand Prix at this point here. Now trying to stick with Leclerc. We would get back to him here, but now it looks like he's going to size up and move on the Spaniard. Yes, he is. To the left side, Alonso goes defensive on the inside here. Now into the braking zone. Usually the outside has the advantage. They're pretty similar right here, as they maybe had a little bit of contact again, side by side through the right-hander, and Alonso, a big slide there. I get on the brakes to make sure we don't crash into the back of him. A nice save there by the 2-time world champion, but he as well loses a position. So now coming to 2 laps to go. Verstappen just 1.1 seconds back. Alonso is going to have the pace, but can he complete the pass on the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc? Let's wait and see here. Now is actually starting the final lap. Carlos Sainz passes George Russell into turn 1, returns to 2nd place there. So Russell, who was in the lead for much of the early part of the race, down to 3rd on the final lap. Alonso is closing on Leclerc. He's making a move. He looks to the left-hand side here through sector 1. They continue wheel to wheel. Verstappen is in striking distance behind as well, 0.8 of a second, and it's going to be closer now. Maybe some contact there with Leclerc. Didn't want to go side by side into that right-hander. Alonso's going to get away, and we are going to be free to scrap it out with Leclerc and both now Max Verstappen, who's joined the party. We will have the DRS. I think Leclerc will likely have DRS as well, but we're going to try and get on with it quicker than him. We're going to be drag racing here down this long sweeping straightaway here. Verstappen doesn't really have any options here. I'm going to sail it off into the chicane. Leclerc lifts early. We get ahead here now, and he has a really poor exit, so we get away as Lewis Hamilton, for the second time this season and for the third time in the last 4 Grand Prix, he's going to come through to win the Australian Grand Prix, win 2 of 3 races. The Sainz will hang on over Russell, not by much there, as Alonso in 4th, myself in P5. Still a respectable day here now, and instead of 1st through 4th for Mercedes and Aston Martin, we end up 1st, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, with the exception of the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz in 2nd place. So still not a bad day overall for this teamwork, making the dream work here now as we get driver of the day. Let's head to the podium.
We've witnessed some great battles on the streets of Melbourne today then, and they've taken a fantastic win. Natalie Pinkham, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
I feel consistency was probably the key today. There's being quick, and then there's being quick lap after lap after lap. If you can do that, you can capitalise on other people's errors without making many of your own. And that's an approach that can push you a long way up the field.
I gotta say that today was probably the least amount of pace we've brought into a race this season, and we still got P5, which is great. But I mean, looking at it, like, I would say today was the first time we just had nowhere near enough pace to fight for a podium. The Mercedes were too good. Carlos Sainz, I had nothing for him. I think Leclerc really had some good pace as well. It's just us being in his DRS made it very hard for him, obviously, to drive away and go and basically disappear in the distance. So overall, it turned into still a solid day for us here, so I cannot complain about that. In the next one, we are headed to a track that returns to the calendar after some time off, of course, over the pandemic. We're going to the Chinese Grand Prix in Shanghai for the next episode. So home Grand Prix for Zhou Guanyu, and an exciting Grand Prix for the rest of us. Valtteri Bottas actually had a mechanical failure, forgot to cover that, and somehow he had a fastest lap of 54 seconds. But Hamilton, 14 points ahead of Russell. Alonso and myself separated by just 3 points. Sainz joining the fight, of course, after an exceptional podium there from the Spaniard. In the constructors' side of things, however, Mercedes continues to open up the gap between themselves and ourselves at Aston Martin, 47 points ahead. Ferrari back by 82, 100 exact points to Red Bull, and you see the rest of the order there. That's going to wrap it up for myself. If you guys enjoyed, you know what to do. Thank you for taking the time of your day for watching. I'll see you in China. Have a great day, everybody.